The impact sounded like a bomb. Claudia Mercer's $110,000 luxury sedan folded around the concrete post hood, snapping clean in half, chrome scattering like confetti across my lawn. She kicked her door open, fury blazing, shouting that I had sabotaged her, that my corner was community property. Neighbors filmed, smoke curled from her crushed grill. Then Officer Langley arrived, measured 2 feet from the curb, and said calmly, "Ma'am, this entire wreck is on his land." Claudia froze, luxury dying behind her, power dying inside her. And she never realized the post wasn't built to stop her. It was built to expose her. Long before her luxury sedan wrapped itself around my concrete post, Claudia Mercer had already claimed my corner lawn like it came with her title. The first time I caught her, she didn't slow down. She cut across the grass in a perfect diagonal tires, carving a scar straight through the section Mia loved watching from the window. When I stepped outside, she finally rolled her window down 2 inches, just enough to speak without letting the outside world touch her. "It's a community easement, Mr. Knox," she said, waving one manicured hand, as if directing traffic. "Learn the layout if you plan on living here." Then she eased her sedan forward with her wheel still resting on my lawn. The next morning, the shortcut was deeper. The morning after that, she crushed a brand new sign I'd placed: "Private property, no vehicles." She didn't even glance at it. She just drove over it like it was clutter in her driveway. I tried talking to her again. She didn't turn around, just bent over her rose bushes and said, "Corner lots are shared visibility zones. I'm the HOA president. I know where the boundaries are." That was her single truth. She believed the entire neighborhood existed to clear her path. But what Claudia never understood was this: precision is my first language. 30 years of wiring, hospitals, and control rooms teaches you to see faults long before they spark. And the day she gave me that smug, careless smile, that's when I spotted the first hairline crack in her power. Claudia didn't slow down after our confrontations. She doubled down. The morning after she crushed my property, a bright yellow envelope appeared in my mailbox. "HOA violation, improper irrigation pressure." I laughed out loud. My sprinklers had run the same way for months. The only thing that changed was Claudia's tire tracks. The next letter accused me of visual obstruction. Translation: she didn't like that I placed 2 orange stakes near the corner to guide delivery drivers. She pulled both out and tossed them into the street like they were trash on her route. The pettiness wasn't what bothered me, it was how calculated it felt. A woman like Claudia didn't lash out randomly. She pressed until people broke, then shaped the rubble into whatever she wanted. That night, Mia watched me pacing by the window, fists tight. "She's trying to provoke you," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but I won't let her win with paper." Because the truth was, I'd spent my whole life troubleshooting systems, and Claudia Mercer was nothing but a short circuit waiting to be exposed. I decided to take a proactive step, not revenge, just protection. At Morales Supply and Lumber, I picked up motion-activated floodlights, low-voltage cable, waterproof housings, the kind of setup you install when you're done asking people to behave. By sunset, my corner pulsed with silent readiness. At 5 a.m., I tested the angles. At 6, I checked the wiring. At 7:47, Claudia's sacred shortcut hour, I stood inside, coffee in hand. Her sedan came slicing across the lawn, and boom, 8 synchronized beams hit her windshield like stadium lights. She slammed on the brakes, stunned. For a moment, she just sat there, trapped in a cage of white light. Then she laid on her horn, long and furious, as neighbors peeked from curtains. The next night, I caught her on camera, wearing dark clothes, creeping across my lawn with a flashlight and a pair of steel-toe boots. She stomped a light fixture, yanked a cable, tried to kill the whole system. She didn't know I'd built redundancies. The feed stayed live, her tantrum saved in crisp 1080p. At dawn, a new HOA notice arrived. Violation, excessive illumination. I nearly spit out my coffee. Claudia escalated beyond pettiness. She went destructive. One morning, I found a sprinkler head snapped clean off. The next, a chunk of turf ripped up muddy tire arcs cutting across the grass Mia loved. My mailbox leaned sideways, metal bent in a shape no wind could make. It wasn't random. It was punishment. When the insurance adjuster came to document the damage, he paused mid-inspection and frowned at a weathered survey stake near the corner. "Mr. Knox, you sure this line is correct?" I shrugged. "It's where the builders marked it." He pulled out a laser measure, checked again, stepped back. "According to the subdivision plat, your property extends much farther than this. Whoever set these stakes didn't match the map." My breath hitched. "How much farther?" "Looks like 15, maybe 16 feet. 16 feet. Claudia hadn't just been cutting a shortcut, she'd been trespassing deep into my land every single morning. The adjuster's expression hardened. I'd get a licensed surveyor. Something's off. That night I barely slept. Not out of fear, out of clarity. Claudia hadn't just messed with my lawn, she'd counted on nobody checking the paperwork. She forgot I spent my life reading blueprints. I called Walt Hensley, an old surveyor who owed me a favor. By noon the next day, orange flags dotted the edge of my yard like a revelation. Walt held up the official plat, tapped the map, then tapped the earth. Caleb, your property line runs 18 feet past where the old stake sits. 18 feet. See that retaining wall? Walt pointed. 3 feet onto your land. Illegal. All of it. As if summoned by her own guilt, Claudia stormed across the street heels, stabbing the grass she no longer had the right to touch. You can't move boundary lines, she barked. I didn't, I said. You did. She jabbed a finger at the survey flags. This is fraud. My husband built this neighborhood. Then he should have followed the map, Walt replied calmly. Later that afternoon, a city code inspector arrived, sent no doubt by Claudia. He wrote me up for unapproved electrical devices, even though the lights were low voltage and fully compliant. I didn't argue. I just documented everything. Because if Claudia wanted to weaponize the system, she hadn't realized I could build one stronger. The day I decided enough was enough, Morales handed me a receipt long enough to look illegal: high-strength concrete mix, thick steel rebar, a heavy-duty form tube, granite cap. You building a bunker? He joked. Just a reminder, I said. Before mixing a single batch, I took my sketches to zoning. The officer skimmed them, stamped a note: decorative post, under 4 feet, inside boundary, no permit required. Perfect. I dug the hole by hand, 5 feet deep. Reinforced it with the steel grid I'd tied myself. Poured the concrete slow, letting it settle like truth. When the granite cap set, the post looked simple, elegant, completely harmless. But it wasn't there to stop a car. It was there to stop lies. I repositioned my cameras, checked my cloud backups, filed every document in a folder labeled evidence. Monday, at exactly 7:47, the luxury sedan came flying across the corner like every other day. This time, physics answered. The metal scream echoed down the street as the front end folded around the post. Steam hissed. Chrome shattered. Neighbors froze. Claudia stumbled out wild-eyed. "You'll pay for this," she shrieked. "I'll have this thing ripped out by Friday." She didn't know she'd just crossed the last line she'd ever cross, and she had no idea what she was about to unleash. 2 days after the crash, I woke to the unmistakable groan of diesel engines, low, heavy, hungry. When I stepped onto my porch, the scene hit me like a punch. An unmarked yellow excavator sat inches from my concrete post, its hydraulic arm hanging over it like a blade. 2 workers in orange vests stood beside it, pretending to study a roll of blueprints that looked suspiciously blank. And in front of them, wearing her signature wool coat and a smug grin held together by desperation, stood Claudia Mercer. "Morning, Mr. Knox," she called, voice coated in syrup over steel. "City ordered an emergency repair. Gas line issue, very dangerous. Best to let the professionals handle it." She didn't notice my phone already recording. "Funny," I said, stepping closer. "I spoke to the gas company yesterday. No repairs planned." One of the workers blinked, confused. I thought this was waterline work." Claudia shot him a death glare. "It's both," she hissed. "Just get it done." The excavator's engine revved. Its bucket began rising, positioning to strike. I raised my voice. "This is private property. Put the machine in park. Now." Claudia crossed her arms. "Interfere, and I'll fine you into bankruptcy." I dialed 911 on speaker. "Yes, this is Caleb Knox. An unlicensed crew is digging on my property under false utility claims. No city vehicles, no permits." The moment the dispatcher said, "Officers en route, do not approach the crew," Claudia's confidence cracked just slightly. 10 minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled up with lights flashing, and the real unraveling began. Officer Langley stepped out, first expression a mix of confusion and déjà vu. He approached the crew chief. "You got work orders?" Langley asked. The man swallowed. The lady, she said it was a gas leak." Langley cut him off. "The utility companies have no active repairs here. Who authorized this?" Silence. The operator looked at Claudia. Claudia looked at the ground. Then the operator cracked. "She paid us cash," he said quickly. "Said it was urgent. Told us to make it look official." "Proof?" Langley asked. The man scrolled through his phone and handed it over. Langley pressed play. Claudia's voice sharp and unmistakable. "I don't care if it's illegal, just make it look like emergency utility work. Gas leak, water break, whatever. I'll handle the paperwork. That concrete post needs to disappear. Neighbors gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh, she's done." Langley turned to me. "Mr. Knox, do you have documentation for this structure?" I opened my folder and handed over Walt's stamped survey showing the true boundary. The zoning officer's written approval note, photos of her repeated trespassing, footage of her nighttime sabotage, HOA notices clearly showing targeted liked harassment. Langley flipped through the packet, then looked at Claudia. "Ma'am, did you knowingly order unlicensed excavation on private property?" She straightened, jaw wobbling. "I'm the HOA president. I have authority. You have none," Langley said flatly. "Not under state law, and definitely not to impersonate a public utility." The excavator operator whispered, "Man." She said this would be easy. And that was the moment Claudia realized paper threats couldn't save her from recorded truth. Langley radioed something quietly, then turned back to Claudia with a calmness that felt like a verdict. "Mrs. Mercer," he said, "you're under arrest for attempted destruction of private property, impersonating a public contractor, conspiracy to commit fraud, and endangering public safety." No, she stumbled backward as he reached for her wrist. "You can't do this. I run this neighborhood. My husband built half this town." Langley didn't flinch. "And he'll be answering his own questions soon enough." Neighbors poured onto their porches. Some were filming, some were smiling. Most were just stunned that someone who seemed untouchable was suddenly very touchable. Claudia thrashed as Langley secured the cuffs. "You're all making a mistake. He trapped me. He planned this." I held up the zoning approval and survey. "Correction, Claudia, I documented everything. You planned this." Her luxury sedan, still mangled from the crash, sat behind us like Exhibit A of her arrogance. Now the excavator crew, trying to save themselves, started handing over even more evidence texts, call logs, payment receipts. Every thread pointed straight back to Claudia and Dylan. When the second patrol car took her away, neighbors clapped, not loud, not mocking, but with the relief of people who had been held under someone's thumb for far too long. As the car turned the corner, Claudia's voice echoed inside the cabin. "You'll regret this, Knox. This isn't over." But she was wrong. It wasn't the beginning of more trouble. It was the beginning of truth, finally catching up to her. And for the first time, I knew the concrete post wasn't the thing that broke her. The weight of her own lies did. The city council chamber buzzed like a hornet's nest when I walked in. Word travels fast in Cedar Crest Meadows, and the sight of police cars hauling away the HOA president had brought out people who hadn't attended a meeting in years. Rows of seats were packed, shoulder-to-shoulder neighbors, clutching folders of fines, photos, letters, all the paper wounds Claudia had carved into their lives. Mia squeezed my hand as we found seats near the front. Her voice was soft, but there was steel behind it. "You ended something today, Caleb. Whatever happens next, it already mattered." I looked around at the faces. People I'd waved to, but never really talked to. People who'd kept their heads down for fear of being singled out as Claudia's next target. Tonight, though, their eyes were alive, angry, hopeful, tired, relieved. A neighborhood waking up. Council Chairwoman Rivera tapped the gavel. "We will now review allegations of HOA misconduct, property boundary, manipulation, and misuse of authority within Cedar Crest Meadows." A murmur rippled through the room. Then she said, "First to speak, Mr. Caleb Knox." The chamber went quiet. I walked to the podium, palms steady, voice clear. "My name is Caleb Knox," I said, "and this isn't about a lawn. It's about a pattern of control that went unchecked for too long." Screens behind me lit up with the footage. Claudia's nighttime sabotage, her trespassing, the crash, and finally the excavator incident. Gasps broke out across the room. I didn't deliver a speech. Just laid out the truth like clean wiring, simple, direct, impossible to misinterpret. And for the first time, the room wasn't afraid of Claudia. It was angry at her. Jordan Blake, my attorney, took the floor next. Calm, focused, surgical with her words. She projected Walt's survey next to the original plat. Then the falsified one. The differences were glaring property lines, shifted corners, stretched small slices of land absorbed conveniently toward Mercer Properties. Gasps turned into whispered curses. A city investigator followed, stepping up with a stack of documents so thick it bent in his hands. Our review found multiple instances of altered plats, unauthorized inspections, and HOA fines issued without basis, all linked to Mercer Ridge contractors. He lifted a sheet. "Here is a statement from the excavator operator confirming Mrs. Mercer paid cash to destroy private property under a false utility claim." Someone in the crowd whispered, "She really thought she could get away with it." Then Councilwoman Rivera turned toward the remaining HOA board members, now pale, sweating suddenly, very small in their chairs. "Does the board deny knowledge of these actions?" she asked. They didn't speak. Not one of them. Silence can be guilt's loudest confession. The council conferred quietly for a moment, then Rivera read the motion, effective immediately. HOA enforcement authority for Cedar Crest Meadows is suspended. All active fines are frozen. HOA accounts will be audited under city oversight. Criminal investigations into fraudulent plats, misuse of public authority, and conspiracy will continue with cooperation from the district attorney. Applause erupted, not wild but powerful, like pressure finally releasing. Then Rivera looked directly at me. "Mr. Knox, your documentation prevented further harm to this community. That is recognized." I nodded, but the weight wasn't pride, it was relief. This was the closure so many people needed. As the meeting adjourned, neighbors gathered around me, hands on my shoulder, thanking me, shaking my hand. Nora Briggs wiped tears from her eyes. "She fined me for having wind chimes, Caleb. Wind chimes. I've been scared of her for years." "You're free now," I said simply. Mia leaned against me, looking lighter than she had in months. "You fought for more than a lawn," she whispered. "You fought for all of them." Council members filtered out staff, packed up equipment, but no one left the room. They weren't ready. They needed to breathe in the moment, proof that the bully wasn't invincible after all. Councilwoman Rivera approached one last time. "There's one more item," she said, "purely symbolic but appropriate." She nodded to an assistant who held up a small metal plaque with fresh engraving KNOX Corner established in recognition of community rights. My throat tightened. I didn't want fame. I didn't want a plaque. I just wanted peace. But seeing my neighbors smile, real smiles, unafraid, that meant something deeper than any award. As Mia and I walked out into the cool evening, the streetlights flickered across my concrete post. It stood solid, quiet, unmoving. Not a trap, not a weapon. A boundary. A truth set in stone. Mia slipped her arm through mine. "Feels different tonight, doesn't it?" "Yeah," I said, staring at the post that started everything. "For the first time in a long while, this place finally feels like home." We walked toward the corner, the neighborhood alive again behind us, and I realized I never built that post to stop Claudia. I built it so the whole neighborhood could finally stand.